Hey guys, today I really wanted to talk to you about my two favorite finesse rigs. I'm really not a big finesse fisherman. I like to power fish, I like fishing a crankbait, something fast. I really hate fishing a drop shot and a shaky head. But when fishing gets tough, you need to have a rig that you have confidence in to catch fish when they just won't bite anything else. Now my two favorite finesse fishing rigs are the Neko Rig and the Mojo Rig. Now these are not just rigs that I will use when fishing's tough. I use it when the water temp is upper 70s, low 80s, when the water's hot, middle of summer, the fish are deep. I'll use it when it's cold. Cold front rolls through, fish shut down, they're not going to want to chase, slow down with this bait. I use it to fish deep, and I use it even when the fishing's really good. And it just gives me a presentation that I know will catch fish, and that I have a lot of confidence on can catch a big one. And now the first one, what I'm going to talk to you about is the Neko Rig. I'm going to go over both of these rigs, what I like to use for them, the way I like to fish them, where I fish them, and hopefully I'll show you how to catch a fish or two. So we'll start with my first and most favorite, the Neko Rig. I really just started picking this up not too long ago, and it has really become my favorite finesse fishing technique. I caught just shy of a 6-pound smallmouth a few weekends ago on it, and I just love it. The smallmouth bass I caught was 5 pounds, 14 ounces, and just a great bait. So what I have right here, have it rigged up already. This is the BioSpawn Exo Stick in candy grass color. And you can see this is just a 5-inch stick bait. The Neko Rig consists of putting a nail weight in one end of the stick bait. Now the nail weights you can use, the one I have in here right now, is a 1/16 ounce nail weight, just like that. I also have a 1/8 ounce. Now I prefer going lighter when I can, always use the lightest weight I can get away with. So I really like the 16th ounce. However, the 1/8 ounce is also a really good weight to get down there fast and to fish it a little quicker. But you know what? With this rig, you don't even need to buy these special weights. When I started fishing it, I just started using finishing nails and just putting a regular nail, hammer and nail, putting that into this end of the worm. And that works just fine. But the most important part of this rig, and it will save you a lot of frustration, is get the wacky tool, that little O-ring, put it on every time you're gonna go fishing with this bait, because trust me, you're gonna lose worms. It really was ticking me off when I started fishing this rig, and I would catch a bass and he'd jump and he'd throw my worm off, and not only did I lose my worm, I'd lose my weight. So get that O-ring, that wacky tool, so that will save you a lot of baits, but more importantly, it's gonna save you weights. The baits that I like to fish with the Neko Rig are any stick bait. Any stick bait's gonna work. 5-inch, 4-inch, 3-inch, 6-inch, 7-inch, it doesn't matter. Just use any stick bait, that's gonna be money. But I really have also liked using, and this is what I caught that big smallmouth on, is a Zoom Finesse Worm. Not the trick worm, but the Finesse Worm. This one's in a old purple color. And you might be looking at this and you're thinking, well, how is the O-ring gonna stay on there? And I'll show you. Now when you're fishing a smaller bait like the Finesse Worm or a trick worm or anything that's not a Senko style bait, this wacky tool kind of becomes obsolete. You don't need it necessarily, but you still need that O-ring. And it kind of looks weird. It makes the bait look a little bulkier than it should, but if it's good enough to fool 6-pound smallmouth, I'm not worried about it. So I take my O-ring off the tool, and what I do with the Finesse Worm, it's really simple. You just take the tail end first and you slide it over, get it right about to the middle. Now you see that's not a tight fit. It's not like the Exo Stick where that's not gonna move. This is gonna move. It's gonna go up and down the worm very easily. You fix that with the hook. You're still gonna take your wacky hook, and instead of, you'll hear some people say, just go right underneath the O-ring, and hook it like that. Don't do that with this, because you will be losing your worm. Simply go into the bait and then come out. The only difference is you have that O-ring there to secure the bait to the hook. Now yes, your hook is still going through the plastic of the worm, but that O-ring is going to keep it on there. I don't care about saving the worm, I care about saving the weight. So that's the way that I like to fish those smaller diameter worms. Now as far as the gear that I like to use for the Neko Rig, I'm using my 7-foot medium power fast action ducket spinning rod. I have that paired up with a Quantum Energy spinning reel with 10-pound Power Pro braid. And to many of your surprise, I don't use a leader. I don't feel it's necessary. I haven't lost any fish. I don't feel like I'm missing strikes, so I'm not using a leader. Now, if it's ultra clear water, I'm gonna use a fluorocarbon leader then. However, with such thin diameter braid, the kind of vegetation I'm fishing around, I'm not worried about the fish seeing my line. So the way that I fish this is with, this is a 3/0, I believe, Gamakatsu wide gap wacky hook. And this is, it comes with the weed guard, the little fiber weed guard. And now, what I like to do with this weed guard is make sure that at all times, it never slips behind the barb. If the weed guard slips behind the barb like that, I run the risk of when a fish bites, it not folding and I'm not able to set the hook. Now, I have had instances where I noticed on a fish that the weed guard was behind the barb and I still caught him, but I'm just very paranoid, so I want to make sure that I'm adjusting that. So when you're fishing it every few casts, you're going to have to kind of bend it and readjust it. Just make sure that fiber weed guard is not slipping behind the barb. And then from there, it's really simple. It's just like fishing a wacky rig. You take your bait, and remember my nail weight is on this end. So right now my nail weight is pointing down. And then you take your hook, you go through the plastic, underneath the O-ring, and then out. So there, that's your rig. Put the fiber weed guard down if you're fishing vegetation. And now your bait's gonna be falling like this. It's gonna be a vertical presentation of the wacky rig. Now, as far as where to fish this rig, really the sky's the limit. You can fish it shallow, you can fish it around docks, you can fish it on deep weed edges, you can fish it anywhere in the water column, 7 feet, 12 feet, 20 feet, 1 foot, it doesn't matter. You can fish it around rocks. I love fishing around weeds, and I've caught a lot of fish doing that. The main times I'm gonna throw it are when the fish are stacked up on deeper weed lines, when the water gets hot and they shut down. That's when I like to throw this rig. 12 feet of water is usually my target, 12 to about 16 feet, somewhere in there. And you gotta make sure that there's at least vegetation present, but not to the point that it's too thick to fish this rig. Whether or not you really need the weed guard, depends on the cover you're fishing. I like to have it just because a lot of these lakes are very weedy. So now that you found your spot for the Neko rig, the way that I like to fish it is cast it out there and give it time to sink. Now, it's not going to sink as fast as a drop shot would or a shaky head or a Texas rig because I'm only using a 1/16 ounce weight. So, I mean, it does depend on the size weight you're using, but just watch your line, give it time to sink. Once it's on the bottom, this is where I fish it a little differently than most people. A lot of people, they fish it with their rod tip up, which is fine, you can fish it that way, but I like to fish it with my rod tip to the side. And all I do is I reel up the slack a little bit, and then I just twitch, 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 twitch. And now that lifts the bait up off the bottom, and it's gonna do its action and fall back down. The reason why I like to have my rod tip to the side is because I detect the bites a lot better that way. And that's just me personally. It can change for everyone, but I like to be able to go to the side and I can feel that fish kind of pulling back on me as I go sideways. If I'm going up, I have a harder time differentiating between, am I stuck on a weed or is that a fish kind of nipping at me, pulling it back? But really, it's that easy for fishing this bait. You just cast it out, get it on the bottom, and just slowly twitch, 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 twitch it back in. Now, obviously, you can vary it up. You can change the way you present it. You can do a lot of twitches, really vigorous, really get it up there, let it fall. Do really subtle twitching, do a little twitch, let it go back down, another little one. Just kind of change it up, see what the fish are gonna like. Another really important thing to do is always watch your line after you cast it out, because a good 40% of my bites come on the drop, the initial drop. And so I may be fishing 12 feet of water and my bait has fallen 4 feet and I just notice my line stop moving. Now, if I'm paying attention enough, I'll know that a fish has it. It's not on the bottom yet. So do your best to pay attention to that. It'll help you catch a few more fish. But really, for fishing this rig, it's that simple. Cast it out, let it sink, put the rod tip to the side, reel up slack, and just twitch, twitch, twitch. And you'll just kind of feel them pulling back on it. changed it up, changed my approach. I put on the black grape Finesse Worm. I got a decent fish here. It's in the weeds, but and there you go. This bass might be the weirdest bass. Can't get out of here, but look at him that way, it looks like a nice fish. Poor guy's got something wrong with his eye. Maybe that's why he bit. He's too stupid. Anyway, that's the Neko Rig. I mean, I was fishing it out deep, and I just couldn't get a bite. So I kind of changed it up. This is a really deep weed line right here. Deep docks to let that fish go. Good luck with that eye. I was fishing out deep, and I couldn't get a bite. So I changed it up, and I started fishing this black grape Zoom Finesse Worm. And I'm fishing this deep edge right here. It's about 14 feet deep right here, and there's a dock. So I decided now I'll whip it up underneath the dock. Sure enough, first cast to try that, and that was a nice, probably 3-pound bass. And so that's the Neko Rig. If you can't catch them deep, you can fish it shallow and you can catch some fish. So that's the beauty of that rig. You can see it's really hard to fish today. Got a lot of pleasure boaters out here, and it's making it a pain to try to fish deep, but nonetheless, Neko Rig will produce a fish for you. Ounce cylindrical weight, and I peg it. And when I peg it, it allows me to slide the weight up and down and to move the length